Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're going to take a look at a bourbon, Dustin's Bardstown, Cooper and Kings. Wordy. 50% ABV. As Dustin mentioned to me earlier, aged 12 years from some MGP whiskeys, and then finished for 18 months in Spanish Oloroso sherry casks. And Dustin?
First fill ones, too. And look at the color.
Yeah, it's a dark whiskey for sure. We'll pour it in the glass, but nice little cap, beautiful, thick, rich bottom to this particular whiskey. So nice presentation, very much like the Signet or the Macallan Rare cask, and a very, very dark whiskey. So this is nearly 14 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I think with 14. Bourbon they only list the age for the virgin oak portion of it. They don't add years
for finishing.
But a year and a half for finishing, you can't really deny
that had an impact.
Yes.
Wow. I've had enough dark first fill sherry scotches to know that is a first fill sherry red hue to that darkness.
Yeah, and you don't see bourbons finished this long in Oloroso usually. And the worry the first thing everybody's going to worry about is, did the sherry kill the bourbon character? We'll let you know, guys.
Yeah, we'll find out. So this came out, what, Dustin, 2 years ago?
About 2 years ago. I can't remember if this is a 19 or a 20 release. Store by me. I told him, hey, guys, you've got to get this bottle. And he somehow found a way to get like 30 cases of this from the distillery and brought it back to his shop. And he had it for about 9 months, whereas everybody else in the country pretty much sold out in a day.
Yeah, that's a strong buy right there.
Yeah.
On your recommendation.
He knew it was going to last. He knew it'd sell, and it did.
All right, so getting the whiskey, it definitely comes off initially like a heavily Speyside single malt scotch.
I'm getting like strawberries and like mint and like charred oak.
Yeah,
Rye spice.
As I dig into it, it's my first time with it. Mm-hmm. The charred oak thing, wow. I mean, it's just like you walk by a campfire that just went out.
And it's interesting. I mean, it's uncoiling as you kind of go in and out. Because, I mean, one time I'll get like chocolate and cherry. Then I'll get some like strawberry. Then I'll get charred oak. Then I'll get smoky oak. I mean, it's rich.
The oak note here is really interesting. You're right. It goes from just absolute embers to a nice, almost barbecue smoke, like where it's just, there's no fire to it, no heat to it.
Yeah, and I mean, you're definitely picking up, I don't know which MGP mash bill they use, but all the MGP mash bills are higher rye, so they're 20 or 36%. You definitely can pick up right away. Yeah, higher rye notes coming in here.
Yeah, mint, like wild mint.
Wintergreen kind of elements are coming through, yeah.
Like a nice little walk through a wooded area here locally.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got like antique store wood going on.
A little bit of pine.
Yeah, it's weird. Like it's like young pine and then antique wood. It's all there.
Yeah, for sure.
Just a really rich, incredibly dense, complex nose on this whiskey.
There's an antique store down the street from my house. I've gone there for 15 years, just walk in and out of it. And it's that antique store smell when it's Christmas time and they have a real
Christmas wreaths or something.
Yeah. No, real
trees. Okay, yeah.
And just hitting the wood on the floor and the wood, it's there for the different type of hutches, dining sets, tables and stuff that's normally there for sale. Wow, so rich.
I mean, you can tell that this is old bourbon. At the same time, it gives me a lot of Scotch notes too. Because I mean, I've never had a bourbon this sherried.
Where it transitions from a Scotch to a bourbon. Like initially, again, the sherry finish feels like a heavily sherried Speyside, but when you get in the fruits, it's way different. Heavily sherried Speysides, I would think plums, figs, dates, things like that. No, these are orchard fruits. That are coming in here for me are very American fruits, I should say.
I'm getting like berries. I'm getting strawberries and
you said strawberries. I didn't get anything
little cherry
quite as that, but I was thinking like more red apple.
I could see some apple in there too, for sure.
Red apple, green apple. Maybe not quite sour enough to be a green apple, but soft green apple.
I could get some dates and raisins, but that bourbon character that's underlying all of it, giving it a different sweetness than you'd usually get.
Yeah, and where it's dark on single malt scotches, this is has a twinge of honey and vanilla, just kind of running as like the spine of it.
Yeah, and I could almost even see some notes here that remind me of like some of the like steaks I've had where they put like a sweet sauce on it. That not really my thing usually, but I've had some like maybe like I don't know, like a glaze of some sort. Yeah, there's a little bit of that.
There's something sweet I'm not quite picking up on exactly.
It's just so unique with that sherry and that MGP bourbon because that's a sweet bourbon note, and they're they're complementing each other in a really unique way that I don't have a comp for. I haven't had anything like it before.
Yeah, it's like two rivers running right next to each other. They just never touch.
Yeah.
One's salt water, one's fresh water, you know? I don't know. It's it's a lovely sweetness.
I'm starting to get a little bit of caramel in there.
There's caramel in that sweetness for sure.
A little bit of it. Now I'm starting to get like a caramel like you could put on like an ice cream or something.
I'd still get a little bit of honey too.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
I think what is a decent amount of vanilla. You know, as you kind of get past the initial last stage, the Oloroso first fill cask, it comes off far more as a bourbon.
Yeah, I don't think they've killed the bourbon character here. I mean, they've definitely
They
matched it.
They tried to cover it up at first.
They've matched it with sherry. I think they've given us a 50-50 almost split.
Yeah, but it's so sweet, and the sweetness is essentially the one thing that's kind of binding this all together.
It's definitely a dessert bourbon.
Oh, for sure.
And bourbons are always, I think, dessert-like. I mean, I think that's kind of the nature of bourbon is it's dessert. And I will say, I mean, it's also very drying on the nose, Mike. So I think that's something to look for when you get into the palate.
I've always told you the bourbons were sweet for me. This is sweet even for a bourbon. On the palate, man, that is incredibly rich. It's almost syrupy sherry. Now, I am picking up a few dark fruits on the palate for sure. But then, man, it's that burnt oak. Oh, man, like with the embers just went cold on. You know what I mean? It's that last dark sizzle. And again, vanilla, honey, kind of like round out sort of the finish. Good. The finish sort of softens and leads into some softer notes. Again, that vanilla and that honey sort of thing. And a little bit of a light, maybe blueberry note. Blueberry, red berry kind of mixed note. But initially extremely sweet. And then the man really just kind of fades into something subtle and nice.
I got a really nice spicy oak and like rye kind of note going here in my finish. I mean, it's still big, bold. I mean, and it's, again, it dries out. I think that's probably why they went with 100 proof on this and not cask strength. Because they did, just before this, they did the Chateau Labad, which we need to get you guys a review at some point of. And that was Armagnac, but they left it at cask strength, whereas this one they felt they needed to bring it down. And I think it's because this would have been too drying at cask strength.
Maybe, but I'll tell you what, now the second gear of this finish is pure milk chocolate. Right now. Pure milk chocolate.
I'm still getting some like nice spicy oak char in here. But yeah, there's milk chocolate.
I mean, maybe there's a branch floating in that stream of milk chocolate, but man, this is a nice, long, smooth finish.
It's one of the longest finishes I can think of on a bourbon that we've reviewed recently.
Yeah, and it's only 50%. That's cask driven though, man. First fill cask it's going to leave its mark.
And it really did. I mean, beautiful. I mean, again, I'm still getting it. I mean, you put this next to some of the popular bourbons that people are running out there paying $300, $400, $500 for. Like
What's this one?
This was $130 retail. I don't know what the secondary is, but
that's worth it, man.
Like
that's a good bourbon.
Yeah, I mean, $130 for 12-year-old plus another year and a half of finishing, like all day, buddy.
You're right. This is the dessert big time.
Yeah, I mean, man, I'm still tasting. My whole mouth is still lingering with that. I mean, and we've been talking for 2 minutes here, and we don't do that in our reviews very often because we don't have time. People don't want to listen to us talk for 30 minutes on a bourbon.
For sure. I tell you what, going back in with water, one thing is obvious that I missed before. Mint.
Yeah, that rye mint for sure.
Yeah, so before what I'd say was almost like wintergreen, almost like, walking through a forest. It was piney, it was green, it was a light mint, but you put some water in that thing, that mint sharpened up quite a bit.
Yeah, and the mint plays well with like the old leathery wood notes.
It goes well with so many things.
It does. Also, I'm getting a lot more honey now that we've added water. It was here before, but I feel like there's a much more honey now.
From the beginning, I've got honey and vanilla in this, but I would say the honey is as noticeable, at least.
I feel like the honey and the sherry are now like the predominant thing. It's like honey, sherry. It's like honey finished in a sherry cask is kind of what I'm nosing here. It's beautiful. But there's that rich, like an old walnut or something. It's not even oak, it's walnut. It's premium wood.
Impressive bourbon. I don't often say that.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get this one over here just because I thought this is one. I'm not sure. I doubt you're going to give it a 95 or anything absurd like that, but definitely gives you a different appreciation of bourbon because it's just a very different. And I'll tell you what, I've been through 2 or 3 bottles of this since it came out because I got plenty of these. I've got. It's funny stories. I actually have another bottle of this and it's open. because I bought it in the store, and I opened it in the store to drink with a couple people who were there. But I already had one open at home, and I'm like, oh well.
Yeah, there you go. I hate when I would do that too. I have two open bottles of the same thing.
I know, and I'm like, I forgot that I did that. And the other day I was looking, and I was like, I didn't think I drank that much. I thought I had more. And then I looked it over, and I had like another one that's like up here, and I'm like, oh, that's right.
I tell you what, man, with water, again, on palate, mint, again, is going to jump out at you even more.
Spice definitely came out more.
For sure. There were some aspects that reminds me of GlenDronach 18. And I'll tell you, right at the beginning, the big sherry punch.
Okay.
And then like where I got a coal note with that,
Yeah.
This one kind of settled into that burnt amber note. I mean, obviously they're different whiskeys, but like those two things were extremely similar as how they transitioned from the sherry note initially on the palate into that coal or burnt ember wood as we described it in this one.
Yeah.
But they're similar. They're real similar.
If you're not a fan of bourbon, and somehow you see this at a bar, and you want to say, give bourbon a try, and you're a sherry whiskey fan,
yeah, you're a sherry
whiskey fan. This is like an
fan.
Absolute must try, really.
You might end up loving it.
Yeah, I mean
seriously.
Honest to goodness, I mean, if somebody came here and told me this is a 91, 92, and they score a little differently than we do, I'd be like, I get you.
I get it. Because you know what? Even though it's 50% ABV, which is a good ABV, it comes off richer, denser, oilier.
Yeah, again, that's what I keep saying. Is like I think they brought it to 50 because it's what this one is perfect at. I mean, any more it'd be dry. It might even be too harsh.
If I was blind in this, I would say this is cask strength whiskey, at least 55%. I mean, everything I can tell without my eyes, without reading it, tells me that. I mean, viscosity.
Even your eyes. I mean,
right.
It looks. I mean,
it does. It looks like motor oil.
That density. Again, when you bring whiskey down even to 50%, you usually start bringing a little bit of lightness. That is as dark bourbon as you're going to ever see, really.
No, yeah, that is. Yeah, it's molasses. It really is.
Yeah, that way people can see the back here. Also, like this little, whatever they did here, it looks nice. Just kind of coming through. I don't really even know what that is.
Or signet or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, so where are you at as far as a whiskey score on this one?
I go back and forth on this one too, Mike. I think I'm going to stick with an 88 here. I was debating going 89, but I think I'm going to stick at 88.
Yeah, I was thinking 88 too. I'm in an 87 on this one.
Okay.
But that's just an overall whiskey score. I mean, as you know, I just gave a $700 Scotch in 88.
This was a bourbon score. I would have given it a 91.
Oh,
if this was purely bourbon. 91.
This is an excellent bourbon.
Yeah.
If you see this, somewhere, and especially if you like sherry whiskeys, as Dustin mentioned earlier, this is a can't miss.
Yeah, this is an upper echelon bourbon without getting into your just like epic like stuff that just doesn't really get made anymore.
Yeah, that you're not going to find out in a local bar. You might actually see this at a bar.
Yeah, especially if you're in like the Kentucky area. I bet you there's bars that still have this at some of those big bourbon bars. And if you're in a place, big city with some big bourbon bars, I bet you this is probably one you'll find, and it's probably one people have forgotten about.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a sexy bottle or label or anything, but the color on it.
Yeah, I mean, Bardstown's gotten really popular in the last year, but this one came out before the craze had really hit, before that Bardstown Discovery 3 had become like everybody's whiskey of the year. So this one was, and then this is before the Chateau Labaud really blew up too. It came out after the Chateau Labaud, but that one didn't blow up until about a year after its release. So
yeah, this one's a good one.
And also this Copper and King, they put out like an apple brandy version of this that sat for quite a while. I never tried it, so maybe it's good. But apple brandy just didn't sound good to me. Yeah.
Anyway, great whiskey. I was really impressed with this one. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Good bring. Anyway, those are our thoughts on this particular one. This is the Bardstown Cooper and Kings. I tell you what, lived up to its name.
Yeah.
Stately bottle, my friends. Anyway, if you guys had a chance to try this, I'd like to know what you guys think. And Dustin, until next time, what do we wish the folks?
Happy drinking.
We'll see you then.